All right. Thank you for joining us another Tuesday for our podcast where Jen and myself have something really cool to talk about. And that's how to do deals today in this market, creative finance. Um, we got a lot of folks joining us today live. So super exciting to see you all. Thank you for coming. And if you're listening to us on our podcast or YouTube channel, thank you so much for joining in. And don't forget, we are on Creative Finance Playbook. I mean, podcasts, all of them, YouTube, they're there. Check it out, guys. Even creativefinanceplaybook.com. But what we're going to talk about is one of my favorite things, which is deal making. And as the market shifts, which it always does, I started this in 2000 or the year 2000 when I did my first deal. And since then, I've watched the market go up and down a few times. We always learn from these experiences, right? And there's some that might have similarities of, recessions or things like that in the past, but no two are ever the same. So with right now, interest rates, if you're listening, are around 8% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. So you're buying a new house right now, you're looking at paying an interest rate of 8%. If you looked at about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, interest rates were in the twos and threes. So what has that done? Well, when interest rates were really, really low, everybody was buying houses. They were affordable at a 2-3% interest rate. It was almost like free money. Not quite, but it was, 2.5%. It's pretty darn close for a 30-year mortgage, right? So that drove up the market for a few years and it made it red hot. Here where we live in Florida, houses that used to sell 3-4 years ago for 400,000 are now 750. And no work has been done to these houses. That's just what they've got because prices just kept on going up and up and up. But now we're at the point where the prices are really almost in most markets at all-time high or just still really close to that. Maybe they pulled back a little bit. But the real thing is that interest rates have gone up so high. So with high prices and high interest rates, it's just really made it a crunch today's market. I know, Jen, we were talking about it, like most people that reach out to us say, it's the hardest thing in the world right now is finding a deal that cash flows or finding a deal that makes sense at today's prices and at today's interest rates. Like, how do I find a win? Right? Do I not buy real estate for the next 3 years? Do I just stop doing that? Right? So I see a lot of folks on social media keep on talking about like, is now a good time to buy? Is now a bad time to buy? Marry the house, date the rate, and all that other stuff that you hear. And how good is any of that information? Well, I will be honest with you. My feeling of buy the house and marry the house and date the rate, like I hate that idea. And I'm going to just tell you why. If you buy the house today, the theory behind that is you buy the house because there's not as much competition. You could get into the house for whatever, they're asking. Maybe even a little bit of a discount. But date the rate, which means at one point later on, you plan on refinancing this house. Okay. That all sounds good and dandy and all, as long as that house still appraises, right? If we're in a slight downturn of the market, you might not get the house to appraise to be able to refinance it, especially if you only put the minimum down 3-5%, right? That could be a challenge. And if a house that you bought for 400,000 all of a sudden has a value of 350, and you owe the bank because you put 3% down, you still owe 275. If you've got to refinance now with that 350 value, you're gonna have to come out of pocket with a lot of money. So dating the rate, well, guess what? You might end up, she might sticking around longer than you're hoping for, if things don't pan out the right way. Let's just say that. So I'm not a big fan of that. And when I see people saying it, I'm not picking on any of my real estate agent friends or loan officers, but it's usually one of y'all saying it. I get it. You're doing a lot of business the last few years, and now it's kind of slowed down a little bit, and you know what you know. But also, too, with falling prices, that could be really causing some people to get themselves in a little bit of a bind if they can't refinance and they're banking on refinancing it, especially if prices pull back. So for me, how do you find deals, Joe? Well, we've talked about this on here. That's why you're all here, but creative finance is our favorite. So creative finance, we're buying real estate, still getting 2%, 3% interest rates. We were at a meetup just a few months ago. And they said that 67% of current mortgages have an interest rate at 4% or less. So what does that mean? There's a lot of folks out there who have a really low interest rate right now. And a lot of these folks don't want to sell them. They want to keep onto that rate. But many people also realize if they have a job opportunity or things change in their life and they want to sell it, a lot of people are reaching out to us frustrated that their houses aren't selling and if they're sitting on the market. So offering us to be able to buy that real estate and take over that old mortgage has now been really huge. So many of you have now heard of it. I don't know. It seems like every other person who's been a wholesaler or everything in the last few years, now they're all talking about creative finance. And we just happened to get into it because our banker told us that, Joe, at 10 mortgages, we cut you off. So if you're planning on buying more than 10 houses, you got to figure something else out. So that's why in 2016, we found it on YouTube. Ron the Grand was talking about it back then, and I didn't know too many people that were talking about it. But he was, and he was talking about how to buy what he called pretty houses, and that's what really changed it for us, guys. And when we started implementing that side of the business, we never had to go back to banks again. So over the last few years, interest rates have continued to stay kind of low. Pricing has gone up. But as this market kind of shifts, we're finding more and more of these opportunities right now of people who need to sell, but they're not selling. They're sitting on the market. A lot of them have low payments, low interest rates that do cash flow. So I would say from a lot of our clients that we're working with right now that are able to find deals, and the same thing for us, it seems like, I don't know, it's if you've got a 4% interest rate or less, to me, that's where a lot of the value is in the deal. Right. So if we're buying a turnkey property, this is what I love to find. And I know when we're looking for a rent to own, these are the ones that we're able to cash flow on. And I would say our number one exit strategy is rent to own. So guys, if you're looking for real estate, we do a whole other class on that too, or a Zoom about it. But that's been our favorite strategy. We've had a list of reasons why. So when we're doing these deals, how are we finding them right now? What's your favorite way to find deals?
Well, obviously, I love Facebook. Social media, I feel like everything is right on the other side of this little device here. And so I think if there's one big piece of advice I could give you is while this market is shifting, if you could do two things while you're looking for your first or next property, it would be one, get really good at branding yourself on social media, because if you can't find who you are and what you're about, then how is somebody going to trust you? So maybe take some time learning how to build out your Facebook page or your social media page and really express that. And then two, just get really good at learning this creative strategy. Now is the time to spend the time education wise, pouring into yourself, maybe abandon the Netflix series for the next 3 months that you've been enjoying, or whatever it is, and really take your time and get serious and laser focus and put the blinders on. Because this, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel like right now it's going to be a lot of planting the seeds and watering them. And in 6 to 12 months, that's when the deals are really going to, like, the faucet's going to come on and they're going to really start flowing. But only if you've taken this preparation time and planned it out and really curated your Facebook pages and the way you're talking to sellers and you're asking the questions and you're genuinely coming from the heart. Because guys, this isn't a money business. This isn't a property, real estate, house. Like, it's people. And these people have problems. And if you can help solve their problem that they're probably really embarrassed to even tell you about, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think you just shared something the other day about, like, if you don't have a presence on social media
Yeah.
right now in this day and age, what was that about?
Yeah. So I forget her name. I was listening to Ed Milet's latest podcast, or one of them, and a woman on there. Her name is Jenn, starts with a G, last name. And she was just saying how branding is so important. That if you go on Facebook and you can't find yourself on there, like, people, what are people going to think, right? If you don't give them to something to look at, like, they're going to use their imagination. So if you don't have a presence, it's kind of like back in the day when there was like the white pages or the yellow pages, right? Like, you'd look up information. You don't have to pay for a website these days. You can literally just take some time and build out a free Facebook page, a free business page, and just spend some time posting about what it is you're doing and how you're helping people, whether you have 0 deals done or, a handful of properties. Just be authentic and just share what it is you're able to help with.
Yeah, because I was shocked. Like on Facebook, it's like 71% of the USA has a Facebook
Really?
page. 71%.
Oh.
It's like 200, like 30 million people in the US have Facebook. So, a lot of times I always hear, well, Jen, I don't have a website yet.
Yeah, you don't need one.
And Jen, I don't know. I'm not a programmer. I don't need to know how to do that. So before I get started, I need to spend money.
No. And if you really hate Facebook, I find that hard to believe because if you can figure out Zoom, I feel like Facebook is almost easier at times, honestly. But if you hate that, then go local, right? Like in your local market and start driving for dollars and telling everybody, in your circle of friends, wave at the mailman. Hey, just so you know, if you ever find a property that maybe has a lot of snow piling up the next few months because you live up northeast or something, or grass that's not being mowed, or a roof that's, unkept, or, you just talk to people. Like that's really what it comes down to. Either you're going to talk to them on social, you're going to talk to them in person, or you're going to start mailing letters, which now you're talking either your hand's going to get tired or you're starting spending thousands of dollars, or you're out there door knocking.
So either way, guys, if you want to buy real estate, you got to talk to
Yeah,
somebody.
you got to talk to people, right? So that's going to be like the most important step there. If you want to do your first creative deal, start talking to people.
Yeah. And so I do love our method the most because most of our conversations are done right through messaging on Facebook. So if we do get on the phone with somebody, there's somebody that we've already kind of had some conversation with through messaging. So that makes it really, really simple. And then after they've made it through, maybe I'm not talking to everybody who messages, right? Maybe there's some people who really aren't interested in selling. They just want to send you a message. There's sometimes
Mm-hmm.
where, they're just not worth getting a phone. And especially if they're sometimes grumpy, I don't want to waste my time with that. Unless they give me a really, really good deal. And maybe they're just grumpy about a situation. But, that's what I love our process is just really talking to folks and seeing how you can help them with their real estate problems. And if you're good at solving problems, treat it almost like a game, like a checkers match or a chess. It's not you versus them. It's you trying to figure out how to solve their real estate problem that everybody's happy about.
And if you don't have that mindset of like treat it like a game, oof.
Get it?
Because if you even once you get the seller to say yes and you've got it under contract, I mean, if you've ever gone to close on a property, hang on, it can be a bumpy ride at times, right? So, literally, how do we best get this done as quickly and effortlessly as possible, especially on the seller's end, And again, I just went live on my Instagram talking about this, but, shifting that mindset of like, because so many people come and they say, well, why would somebody want to do this? Why would they give you 30 years, Joe, for $60,000 or $12,000? Why would anybody do that?
Yeah. Well, you don't know until you ask. And maybe that wouldn't work for you, but that doesn't mean that you make the decision, right? They do. So I ask them what works for them and they give you the answer.
Mhm.
So a lot of times I think it's just, kind of getting out of your own way, talking to sellers, asking how we could help. And it takes some grit, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
When I made my very first deal talking 23 years ago, I was faced with a ton of issues. And unfortunately back then I couldn't turn to Google for help. I couldn't turn to YouTube for help. I mean, geez, there's only like you
You mean you didn't
mentioned,
just call Ron the grand up and you didn't help
it
him?
was the year 2000. I didn't know any of this stuff, right? It was that long ago. So every single time I was faced with a new challenge, I could have thrown in the towel. And that's why even my attorney says when the deal finally closed, he's like, you know what? I am shocked that this happened. He's like, you take a lot of grit. But after I
Mhm.
saw me being 22 years old, broke, I had no money. I had bad credit. I had, maybe $2,000 to my name, which was like my life savings, living in an apartment.
And you didn't use any of those as excuses, which I think really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I
Like
hustled my tail
we
off.
can look at all of the things that aren't going to work or might not happen, all the reasons, but if you don't look that way and you just focus it like this will happen because I will take it down the line, I will find a buyer, I will get a hold of the sellers, whatever your obstacle
Oh my
might
gosh.
be, so it's again that mindset piece that's really important.
Because I'll be honest with you, if you don't have that mindset right and some grit to yourself, go don't do this. Stick to your day job, find a job that you love. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's a lot of great people out there who have jobs and they like it. And this isn't always for everybody. And I understand that. This takes some grit. When you write up a deal and then all of a sudden your deal blows up because the seller didn't tell you this, or there's an extra lien against the house for whatever, or all of the different reasons why you write deals and not all of them go closing,
Mhm.
right? So if you throw in your towel and
It's like
cry.
controlling your emotions has
Yeah,
been
it's tough.
really, really key because like you can get really excited about a $90,000 check. And then the next day, like a deal completely fell through that maybe would have been like 200,000, right? So really important to just kind of keep everything level. And then two is like you're getting out there and you're starting to talk to people. We say grow your network, but like let's break that down because again, like this is how creative deals can happen a lot easier if we don't overly complicate them. And so I'm getting a lot of, well, hey guys, I'm posting the thing you talked about, the posting in the Facebook groups, is the house not market ready? And I'm getting a lot of realtors. I'm getting a lot of realtors.
Yeah,
And
there's a
that's a
lot.
great thing. So how do we like turn that instead of it being a bad thing into a good thing? Because again, people don't know what they don't know. So instead of getting frustrated, like a realtor's reaching out, then start talking to the realtor. You don't have to be a complete expert yet and know all the things about creative financing like Joe,
I
but
still don't. I'm still learning new stuff all the time. I have nowhere there yet. But
that
thank you.
they just started right a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, or they just stumbled into this podcast. Like, how do you still start building those relationships when you're just learning? Because I think that's really like this next few months here for a lot of people.
Yeah. So the one thing I try to never do is try to talk above the realtor. I'm always super nice. I'm trying to be helpful, trying to buy a house, trying to make a deal, which if you're in sales, you should love somebody who wants to buy whatever it is you're selling. So if you're really, really nice, that's the first step, right? To help win friends and influence people. Now, what you're trying to do is explain to them something that they might not know about. Sometimes people say, Joe, you can't do creative finance in Tennessee. That's illegal. I think somebody, maybe one of you, even put that in our group. We've done those deals in Tennessee. It's not illegal there. The agent said that because maybe the agent just doesn't understand this, and that's okay. That's going to happen a lot, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of knowing some things that will help them understand and maybe point them into the right direction. I always try to be helpful. So, the one thing that I always kind of talk about is it's on every HUD statement, line 203 and 503. You guys probably heard me say that a bunch of times, but if you actually just Google a HUD statement, which is done in every real estate transaction across the country, line 203 and line 503, if you just Google it, you'll see, and they're right on there. Talk about how to buy real estate subject to with the underlying debt staying in place. It's all right there. So if you're trying to talk to an agent and they don't understand, I point that out. If they read that and they tell you it's still illegal, talk to somebody else. You're wasting your time. And I'm just being nice, but not everybody will get it, right? But finding a way, like what Jenn said, it's in who your circle is. So like if somebody reaches out, you're able to connect and build that relationship with them. And this has happened to me many times. Maybe that one deal that we talked about is not a winner.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also said, this is what I'm looking for. Do you have any other ones that you're working on currently that might fit this criteria? And that's brought me to other properties and other leads.
And we say this from experience. So we literally took this business from like one property a year ish
Mm-hmm.
to let's go full time in the global pandemic where you can't even leave your house, you can't even have open houses, you can't show properties, like that was craziness looking back. Holy cow, I can't believe we actually did that. But what happened was we started networking with other investors in our area, and we were able to take over payments from a seller who could not sell to a wholesaler because that was a beautiful turnkey house.
Yeah, and that was a great point of it. We were going to meetups, local real estate meetups. We were friends requesting.
Socially distanced, of course.
Yeah, we
Outside.
would sit like in a park in the summertime outside in this big, huge
Brought our
like
kids,
circle.
little kids. They hung out, playing their iPads, reading their books, playing with their toys, but like took these big steps really looking back where, get COVID, scary, outside, meeting people. And if I may be honest, we were kind of laughed at. Do you remember? So I remember we were sitting in a circle and they were like, well, what do you do? And you're like, you told everyone, well, I'm looking to buy a beautiful house turnkey. If anyone, I can pay full price if you know anyone. And we literally got laughed at.
Yeah, the one guy's like, well, who isn't?
And I was like, but do you understand how we're able to buy? Because he didn't. And so we all start somewhere. So that was literally 3.5 years ago, drive into a park, sitting outside, kind of don't know any of these people. They're the well-known investors in the area. And we started there.
Although a bunch were like, oh, wait, you're,
Oh, they didn't know us from rent to own.
yeah,
So.
they're like, wait, you are
Yeah.
585 rent to own, because we just
So
blasted that
we,
thing all
yeah.
over.
So having a page, as you're growing is important because that can help. But I don't know. I just want to share that because you just know you may have, oh, well, it works because you've done it so long. But again, it was putting ourselves out there. And then we sat with one of the investors and kind of shared, I think like probably a couple weeks in a row where you
Oh
just,
yeah.
almost kind of giving him some education. Well, this is how it would work. And this is how we'd be able to help. And then sure enough, he brought a deal that he wanted to help these sellers out. And we gave him a referral fee, really, a
Yeah, we paid
assignment
him
fee.
$5,000 on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
these folks reached out and he was a wholesaler, but he found a property folks really needed to sell, wanted to sell it off market, but it was a turnkey house. And they needed a fair dollar for it. So he said, the number doesn't work for me, but I think I have a friend who would buy this if you're open to terms. Brought us the deal. We made the deal. No money down. He walked away with $5,000 check for a dead lead that he was going to throw into the garbage. So he feels like, hurrah, I made it. So now, don't you think all the other investors in the area heard about that too? Sure did. Right. He just got a $5,000 check on a dead deal. So every time we go to meet up, I'm like, yeah, there's our buddy over there. Got all that money for.
and that 5,000 helped keep him, I know he was doing PPC, which I think is like super expensive. Like
Yeah,
every time you click on an ad there, to the
Google
point where
it.
they're like, don't click on my site. It's going to cost me money. So everybody, you can help everybody out, and again, we're always sharing an abundance mindset, but I want to share that experience because once you really kind of give back to your community, share what is how you can help people, a lot of folks aren't going to want to learn this, how to do this, but they would love to get the $5,000 assignment fee from you if you're going to take down the property and then you're going to make money on however which way you decide to place a tenant buyer or whatnot.
Yeah, because you could do. I mean, you don't have to do rent own. You can keep it as a
Short-term.
long-term rental, midterm, short-term, whatever your flavor is. We just like to get paid a lot of money and not have to deal with the phone calls being landlords. So that's why our favorite is rent to own. But there's a lot of great ways to do it. But the whole art of it is finding motivated sellers, right? So rather a realtor brings it to you, another wholesaler or an investor brings you something where I can pay full price for a house. Everybody else writes that they want, cash close in 2 days, right? Our marketing all says that we could pay full price. And it's true because when somebody reaches out to us, if they want 400,000 for their house, if the rest of the terms look great, then yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
So that's why we love creative finance. And it's definitely been a life-changing event for us. So I'm so happy when I found these videos on Google. I got really busy at work and one of our family members started watching the same stuff too, because I introduced him to it. And he started falling down the rabbit hole and yanked me back into it again. And if I just stayed busy at my job, JOB, which stands for just over broke, don't matter how much money they pay you, you're still living, check to check ish, right? You might have properties and money saved, but you know what it's like. But I was most likely would have stayed at that if I didn't fall down this rabbit hole learning how to buy it. And then once I found out how to do that, and we were looking at this together, because my poor wife, every date we went on or anywhere we went, that's all I talked about. So
Ron was always on a date with us.
but with that being the case, guys, and we really put the hammer down, we found a lot of opportunities. And this is the market kept growing, right? So we found it at a great time. But as the market is changing now, I just think it's a better time. And I think we're going to find a lot of these properties. So what are we looking for right now?
Well, in what regards?
What kind of properties do we like?
Well, I love beautiful turnkey properties, of course. And so
He's like,
I keep thinking like I don't know. Cash flow and Florida market, it's a little nutty down here. Insurance has me a little like, what? I'll be honest. So I keep like I think I'd like to get back up into the New York market. I think that even though it's more tenant friendly, the way we do it doesn't scare me because of our tenant buyer program and how we get the large non-refundable option deposit. We set it up kind of the training wheel program essentially of owning a house. I love it. Like it's honestly one of my favorite parts of this business. So, and I keep going back to like my backyard, my old backyard now, but if you have established a name for yourself in the community and you've got people there, boots on the ground. I mean, I really think that we should be all day long looking for those. How many percentage, or there was like a certain percent of under 5%?
67% of mortgages are under 4%.
Yeah. So like there's still people that are wanting to leave New York for many reasons. And I would love to buy their house. So I need to, make a better effort to kind of go back up there and market some more. And I think too, some of the people that we've, helped train in this environment, they've not spent any money on marketing because they went local and they go to meetups and they share on their social media pages, and they really have like referrals coming in from neighbors who see properties turning over and becoming more beautiful, or placing the tenant buyers and having success there, or just like, whatever the case may be. Like I think of Brittany, we had a great interview with her on our podcast before, with her and her husband. And Grace, she's another one, like totally rock starred out of Iowa there. But getting honed in on what it is you're looking for, that's where I'm at. I want to go get some more New York properties.
Yeah, and
What are
Brittany
you
was just
thinking?
talking about Brittany. We were just chatting with her the other day, and she used to work for us years ago and wanted to do this full time. Wanted to quit her nursing job. Check, did it. Next, wanted her husband to leave his corporate job. Check, did it. And we told her at one point, like, you're gonna do this full time. Like, you're gonna learn. Because when she started working for us, she's like, I'll work for you guys for free, as long as I can learn, so I could do this for myself one day. So he said, no, we'll pay you. Paid
And
her.
she found us because we were putting ourselves out there on Instagram. So another form of social media. But
Yeah,
just saying, when you start branding yourselves, people will find you.
and she would work for us as an intern. I just didn't feel right making all that money in those deals and not paying her anything, so we did. And she worked for us for 2 years and was fantastic, absolutely amazing. And now she doesn't spend any money on marketing, $0 on marketing, and she's doing a deal or two every month.
Yeah,
every single month. She's now quit nursing. Her husband's quit his corporate job. They live with their 2 children, and this is what they get to do right in Pennsylvania. We've had another couple do the same thing. A lot of these people are, I can't believe this successful, like in their 20s and 30s. Like, I kind of kick myself in the butt.
oh,
I'm
I
46,
know.
yo.
I can't even think about it. You can't look back.
I'm
Can't look
46.
back. I know. We just got to be so happy for them to have discovered it sooner.
I know. It's just awesome. They're that successful, that young. Yesterday was Monday morning. I was very grateful because my Mondays spent all day at my old corporate job, like all day. I didn't get to see the kids. I didn't get to see my wife. I didn't get to see the sunlight. I'd get into the office in the morning. It was always a little dark. I would leave dark. Right. And I'm sitting in a fishbowl, which is just surrounded by glass. Everybody could walk by and see me. And I felt like a fish in a fishbowl. So the fact that I could get out of that now and do this full time is a blessing, guys. So, but once again, you have to have that grit, like we kind of mentioned. You need to put in some work. It's not just taking a walk through the park and all of a sudden I fell into a real estate deal and now I own this property that makes millions of dollars. No, it takes some effort, but we talk about it.
But you can do it on your phone, even if you're golfing.
You can do it even on your phone while you're golfing. We had a conversation. Is he in here?
No, I don't know.
When one of our investor friends were partnering on a deal, and he was at the golf course yesterday on a Monday golfing while trying to call us about a real estate deal. And we started ripping. I'm like, get a real job, because he said the same thing to us before.
But yeah, I mean, you're working, but just a different type of work. So you just got to be able to bob and weave.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some questions come in. So if you guys have more questions, this is what we're here for. So I'll kind of take a look here. I've seen a lot of creative finance wholesalers offering deals that are $25,000, $45,000, or $80,000 for single family homes in different parts of the country, plus closing costs and their assignment fee. This is a far stretch from getting into them with low, no money down, like you talk about. Is this how your typical deals look too when you're all in, or are these deals just some of the not so good deals?
So that is a great question, center stage. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I see the same deals that you're talking about posted on all these groups. And I don't want to pick on anybody, but everybody's got to start from somewhere. And I think there's a lot of folks out there who maybe just watch a lot of YouTube videos, but never been maybe professionally trained on how to underwrite and analyze a deal. So many people who just say yes to a seller finance deal, they want half down and all these other crazy things. They're just not good deals. The deals that we like are with no money down. So when I see sometimes somebody has a deal wrapped up, it could be a wholesale deal. If you've worked with wholesalers, has anybody seen a wholesaler bring you a deal where they've got the price wrapped up way too high? Well, this is the same kind of thing. It's just creative finance stuff, right? They got it wrapped up way too high. 120 grand down plus a $50,000 assignment fee and all the other stuff. No way. Get out of here.
Yeah, and I think like it really comes down to, and I know people get frustrated when we say it, but it is a numbers game. Like if we showed you our CRM and you saw how many sellers say yes to terms, yes, I'll totally do it, but I need 50% down, 9% interest, and this, crazy monthly payment, it's not a deal. So it's not only do you have to get the seller to say yes, but you have to also make sure it's a win for you as well, because you can't put yourself in a silly situation like that. And
Bravo.
well, I feel like a lot of people just hope maybe it's a deal, maybe someone will want this, but at the end of the day, if it's not, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, right? And somebody's asking about our shirts. They do say cash flow.
Everything around me.
I don't know where you got that from.
Uh,
But
so
yeah, the cash flow is really important. Numbers have to make sense, and so it's really easy, honestly, to have a seller say yes with terrible terms. Like anybody can do that. It's awful, but
and that's why I'm big on cash flow, because
yeah.
if the market goes up or it goes down, you can still rely on that monthly mailbox money coming in every single month. If you bank on only appreciation right now, you're in trouble. They'll come back, but it might be another decade or so. Who knows? Nobody really knows, but I've seen it happen before. So this is why I'm really big on cash flow. If the market goes up or down, as long as I'm making my 550 per door and we have X amount of doors, it doesn't really make that big of a difference to us, right? So this is why I'm really focused on cash flow, because that's what pays the bills and pays down debt, depreciation, all the wonderful things. I just spoke to a realtor the other day, and in his ad, he wrote, seller finance available, inquire for details. So I said, ooh, this is one right here in Sarasota, Florida. So I'm all giddy. I want to call. But before I call, I go on PropStream where it shows me the owner's information. I look it up and I look up the agent's name. It's the same name. I'm like, obviously this agent is also the owner. So I call up the agent, playing kind of dumb. I'm like, hey, I see your seller is offering seller financing. Can you tell me about that? And he says, sure. I also have it available for rent. It's available for rent for $2,100. I said, okay. And he wants 385 for the house. I think it was 385, something like that. Maybe it was 400 or 500,000. I can't remember. So I said, okay, well, seller financing available. Can you tell me about that? And he said, yep, I want 25% down, which was 85,000 at a 9% rate, divided over 30 years with like a 2-year balloon. I was like, whoa. I just put those numbers in my head real quick. I'm doing it on my calculator. I add in the tax, the insurance, and what he wants. I'm like, my payment's like $2,900 a month. It's cheaper for me to rent the property from you than it is for me to buy it. And I have to give you 85 grand just to have a $700 a month more payment. Like, where does that make any sense at all? So when I hear some of these crazy deals, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and say, meh, right. I'll see that deal back around, or I'll see that property back around, or write down that address after they don't get it sold.
And it is kind of like a magic trick where if you don't get one dealitis and you just keep your pipeline flowing with more people to talk to and more deals across your desk, you just kind of laugh it off and set it over there. And you can follow up and ask them, because that's probably still going to be sitting there in another month, 3 months, however long. But that's really important too, guys, is just that you just have to keep going. Like, okay, that one didn't work. And, maybe if you haven't had a lot of sales experience, or I'm not sure what other.
Okay, but let me give you this too, though. Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Maybe they want 50 grand down, but it's a $2 million property.
Well, then.
Right. But they're talking single family homes, but there are some that are like that.
The
right?
numbers have to make sense.
So here's what I do, guys. I look at a couple things. What's my cost of entry? And how much money am I going to make on this if I turn it into a long-term rental? Some of these deals I've been looking at, it's a negative for a long-term rental, but they say, well, you could do short-term rental there and make, $1.25 a month. Well, what happens if the market changes and you're no longer able to do short-term rental, or you don't want to do that anymore, or any of the other things that come up, right? So for me, if it doesn't pencil out at a long-term rental, I'm not interested.
Yeah, and if you're curious, like the calculator he's talking about, it's in our Creative Finance Playbook Facebook group. It's in the file section. Abby posted it in there, so definitely go grab that where you can just plug in your numbers and then it tells you your ROI or
Yeah.
or lack thereof.
Yeah. So my cost of entry, how much I'm going to make as a rental, is my payment 1,800 and I can rent it for 3,000 and I can make 1,200. I'm interested, and I need 20 grand to close. Okay, I would make those kind of deals most likely.
Hmm.
However, if I need 85,000 to close and I lose $200 a month, you're gonna have a hard time wholesaling that deal.
Yeah.
So just be mindful. Look what you're making on the deal.
And some wise words we were given years ago was time and circumstance. So again, what they're asking for today, if they're being very stubborn on some things and the numbers aren't aligning, then just follow up in 30 days. Use a Google Calendar, use some sort of system, use a file folder. I don't care, but find some way to just in 30 days check back up with that
With
person.
sellers,
The seller, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm Manny. You're on your current offers. How much of a discount on purchase price are you looking at in the current environment, taking into account the risk of home prices falling?
So for me, when I look at a creative finance deal, okay. When I look at a cash offer, cash deal, there's one thing I look at, and that's the price. How much am I paying for it? Right. That's my negotiable. That's my price. Cash was my price. That's the only thing that matters. When I'm looking at a creative finance deal, there's four things that matter. So it's different. And I'm going to rank them for me. What's most important? Number one is the down payment. Number two is my monthly cash flow. What's the monthly payment versus what I can rent it for? Number three is my term length. How long of a term do I get? Do I get a 1 year I get them cashed out, or do I got 30 years? That makes a big difference. And then the fourth thing is the price. So which is interesting because that's why I love creative finance. The number one most important thing to a seller is most likely price. Where for me, out of my four, that's the least likely thing I'm concerned about. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still on the four, so I'm still concerned about it. But that's the least of the four. So let me give you a great example. If a seller wants 400,000 for their home, and I think the market could pull back there, but they're going to sell it to me for no money down. I've got a super low payment. So cash down zero. I have a really low payment. Maybe it's seller financing and they finance it at a 0% mortgage, or I'm taking over somebody's payment at a 2.5% rate, and I got a really low payment. So no money down, super low payment, so I could cash flow really well. And they give me a 10, 20, 30-year term. It's worth 400 today, and they want 400 today, and I'm thinking it might go down in the future. I don't care. I'm taking that deal every time. Why? Because I have a super low payment. My cost of entry is zero besides some closing costs, right? So for me, those are the deals I'm looking for, are turnkey properties that cash flow with really low interest rates and low entry fees. So if that seller feels like they got to win at 400,000, and I figure that's what it's worth now, and it might go down to 300,000. If I'm still making 5, 6, $700 a month, I don't care. Now, if they give me a 30-year term, why would I care? If they give me a 2-month, 10-month, 2-year term, something really, really short, then I need to get a big discount. And I don't like to do short terms, and I don't do short terms. I will pass on deals where they only will do a short term unless I'm getting a huge discount.
Yeah. I love this next question. So I'm going to answer it a little bit and then you can chime in.
Go for it.
How much time should one invest in this in the beginning, considering we have full-time jobs and little kids? So I think it's really important to, first of all, figure out your why. Like, why are you going to set out to do this? And then is it just to have like one property a year? Or are you looking to like exit W-2s? Because that could kind of determine some choices that you're going to make, because we knew we wanted to get him out of his W-2 and work together full time. So for us, it was every spare second possible without driving ourselves totally crazy. We dedicated to the business. So what that looked like, I can let him share what his mornings and nights and days he was working. But for me, it was, when the kids went down for naps and I was home with them, then I was on the phone talking to all the tenant buyers and asking them the questions and showing the properties and, making sure all of the social media stuff was going out there right. And then, eventually it was evolving into, we're making sure the social media for the sellers stuff was going out, but it was every spare second. So like I'm on the way to the library, I see my phone's ringing. When I get to the library parking lot, before we go into the library, I make those phone calls. So it was really early on. We also essentially taught our kids that, mommy and daddy are working, and they've always been in on it with us. And so whether it was when they're super little and I'm asking them to be quiet while mommy makes a phone call, or we're taping a note to the door during 2020 and they're like, don't disturb us as we're going live or whatever it was, they've been a part of the process. But then they've also been right there to see the fruits of our game. Like, so Joe is now with us full time. And, because of short term sacrifices, huge gains were made. Days. So his day off was Friday. We would spend the whole day working on real estate, had a mentor call first thing in the morning. We're driving around to the properties. Our whole week was scheduled with mostly real estate related items. And there were so many Sundays where we are holding open houses or finishing up a property. So I guess to answer that question from my point of view is as much as humanly possible, with still giving yourself family time, turn the phone off, enjoy some things. But I gave up Netflix. I gave up a lot of, time with friends and maybe all the family barbecues. There were some that we just missed. And it was something that we chose to do because we believed in our future. And
We're willing to work hard for it.
yeah.
Well, and I think it's true because like what I found out, I had a job I worked a lot of hours. I was in the car business. And I had two young ones at the time when I was learning this. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. Right. So what I did, and I'm just going by me personally, I woke up an extra hour early. I did not have a lot of time during the day. Once my wife and kids got up, the race was on. Right. So I didn't have a lot of time. So what I do, I'm just being honest with you guys. I would go to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. But I would be up at 5 o'clock every morning. And from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock, I'm sending out emails. I'm doing whatever I could to do in that 1 hour, whether I'm popping in my earbud or I'm still laying in bed listening on my iPad. I did those things. But the reason why is if I just did that 1 hour a day, it 1 hour, and I know everybody's like, well, I don't have this time. Like, you will build time for something that's super important to you. And if it's your future, you will find the time. If it's worth it, you will find time or make time. I promise. If it's truly worth it and you want it more than anything there is. I liked my job, but I didn't love it. It paid me 200 grand a year. I got a raise 2 months or 2 weeks before COVID happened, 2 weeks before I walked away, to make another 50,000 a year. I was going to make more money in my life than I ever did. And I grew up poor, kid that just graduated high school, never went to college, about to make $250,000 a year, being in charge of the finance department, the largest Chevy dealer in the country. Like, I thought I hit Mount Rushmore, top of the hill. And it was just a limiting belief, guys. I knew I wanted more because I knew those golden handcuffs, I was going to be there till I was 80 years old. Maybe not quite 80, but you know what I'm talking about. So I made that 1 extra hour. And that 1 extra hour gave me another 6.5 work weeks throughout the year that I was doing that nobody else was doing. I'm sure there are other people were, but I know none of my friends were. I know all the naysayers weren't doing that.
Well, you also weren't going, not that there's anything wrong with it, but you weren't going to the bar after work, having beers and sitting there for hours either. Again, you were very strategic with your time.
Yeah, because after work, everybody would go next door to the bar and they'd go have beers. So when you got out at 9 o'clock, you didn't get home till 10:30. These guys are getting home, got a hangover the next day. Some of them did. Some are professionals, didn't get a hangover.
Oh, goodness.
I'm still friends with them. It's all right. But me, I was home at 9:15. I was in bed by 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Waking up early the next day. I just set my priorities. So a lot of my friends who are just kind of like giggling now, they laugh
we
at
were
me
made fun of again. Yeah.
and now they're like, we're your hero. We've been following you for so long. And now they love you. Right. So it's cool. but that's not what it's about. It's about just taking those extra steps.
And it's so uncomfortable. If you've heard of the crab theory, where like a bucket of crabs, if one tries to climb out, the other crabs like freak out and they try to pull that crab back in. Because if you're used to the same old, and everyone around you is just kind of doing the everyday thing, and you clock in, you clock out, you watch the Netflix, you grab the beers, you sit around, eat the pizza, but then there's a part of you just wants a little bit more, right? There's more to life than just that. And not everybody feels that way, or they don't think they can do it. And so it takes a lot of mindset. We go back to that every time. The book, You Are a Badass. That's where I learned about the crab theory. I just loved her. Jen Sincero. She like really went into that. It's like, when you start separating, that's a good thing. It's super uncomfortable. And so you kind of have to, again, put the blinders on it and just believe in yourself, and show up to places like this. So all of you here are that little crab trying to get out of that bucket. Or maybe you already are the bucket and you don't even care, but there might be somebody who's like, oh, but what if my brother thinks this of me?
Yeah, and I will say though too, and on the flip side of that too as well, is but make sure you're not burning yourself out. I will be honest with you, in 2016, 17, when we were learning this, I was listening to a lot of Grant Cardone at the time. Love Grant, huge fan. Some people love him, some hate him, whatever. But he had the book 10X. And so I thought, well, geez, if I'm doing this, I need a 10X everything.
Yeah.
And 10X will burn your ass out quick. Okay. This isn't a running race to see who gets there the fastest. Success is all determined in your own head. If my job was to buy one house a year, and I did, I'm successful. If my job or my goal was to do 4 deals a month, and I did, then in my eyes, I'm successful. There's people out there who do way more.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there who do way less, right? So success is accomplishing what you want to do. Wealth is measurable. Either I have more money than you or I have less money than you, right? So that's something to measure, but success is not measurable. Either you are doing what you want or you're not. So my level of success was being able to walk away from my job. I thought if I could just do this full time, boy, wouldn't life be great? With that extra hour a morning, I got that done. It took a global pandemic to peel me out of my job because my limiting beliefs thought we have one income. I know how to do this, but we have one income because John walked away from teaching, stay-at-home mom. I've got a 1-year-old and I have a 3-year-old, and I make 20 grand a month, and I'm about to walk away from that to go do this full time. So build first. We did. We had properties. We were doing rent to own. We knew how to do this already. So we were comfortable with making that lunge, and we did. And we started doing deals right away because we had the right things in place. So that was crucial. And then we just put the pedal to the metal. Our dreams came true because we got to do this full time. And that's when everything really started happening for us. It's been the last 3.5 years have been magical, crazy, wild, profitable, crazy, but wild and exciting, all lumped together.
Yeah. Well said. But yeah, definitely work when you can, rest when you need to, but just don't quit.
Yeah.
I think that's really important too. Like take the Apple Watch off, put the phone down, rest when you need to, but just come back when you can. And there is no race. I think that's really important too.
And the biggest thing is don't quit.
Don't
if
quit.
you can learn how to buy real estate with creative finance and get houses that are nice for 2, 3, 4% interest rates that you can cash flow, guys, and if you can start buying a bunch of those, like, you will be a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. That's my favorite thing about real estate. We get right off depreciation, we pay down debt, we make monthly cash flow, all the right reasons why to do it, and you will become a millionaire doing this. So, like, for me, that was my goal. I want to be a millionaire when I grow up. Well, it can be done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Not quickly, but it takes time.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say it happens. You just can't quit.
Yes.
Amanda was asking, do you use some type of software to determine what the terms will be? So we did talk about the calculator, but as far as like what the terms are, it's really the conversation with the seller.
Yeah, we have the software, which is just our creative finance deal analyzing calculator. It's right in our group. Go check it out. Get it. It's on there, right under the file section.
But you need the numbers from your seller.
But you need the numbers from your seller. So what does that look like? That's the numbers they're going to give you versus the selling price, all the things.
Yeah. Ahmad is asking, once they agree to the sale and the terms, how do you make the rest of the process seamless for the seller so they don't back out?
Emma, that is a great question. So we've agreed on terms. I tell them, great. As this sounds good to you, the next step is I'm going to put this all on paper. I'm going to send it over to you. If it's exactly what we just talked about, give it the okay. And then I will send everything to the attorney or title company. And then the next step after this is that closing date that you wanted. Somebody from the attorney's office and title company is going to reach out to you right away to confirm what we've talked about and get this progress in motion. So if this is all good for you, I'm going to call you back in 10 minutes, or you might even go to the property. We do this all virtually. So we just call the seller back. Actually, Lexi does that for us. Lexi will call the seller back, get on a phone call, say, are you able to pull up your email? They do. Once they pull it up, they go over the agreement together on a phone call. So many people, so many deals that we've lost, we just emailed it over and then prayed, right? That doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It just disappears.
Yeah. So for us, what we learned is we get on that phone call, we send it over there, we make sure that we're on the call together, going over it. Okay, if all that checks out, just hit the okay button and it comes right back to us. They do that, then we send it to the title company or attorney. Next, I ask the attorney or title company to reach out to the seller to let them know that we've got your information about buying the property, that I'm the contact person at the attorney's office. So it makes it feel real.
And they also ask, do you want your money in a check or do you want it wired?
Yes.
If there's money to be had.
If they're going to be getting any money, if it's a cash deal or wholesale deal, if you're giving them $5,000 down at closing, however that looks like. If you're doing no money down, I don't bring this up. But if you do have to give them a little something, we always ask, do you want that money wired to you or do you want it in a check? I'm making this experience feel real. We just made a deal. You just okayed the paperwork. We're talking about the attorney or title company who's going to be calling you shortly, and then we get them to do that. We're asking them how do they want their payment, if they're going to be receiving any money. So with doing all of those things, and then time kills deals. So if you wait, 70 days, 100 days to close, they've got more opportunities to change their mind, back out, change of heart. Some sellers just really like, hey, let's get this done ASAP. And next thing you know, you bought a house in 10 days, depending on where you live.
Yeah. All right, Lucinda, you have a question here. I'm looking to sell a turnkey property and prefer cash. However, listings are slow process right now. Suggestions for the best way I can utilize it. It is vacant and remodeled.
So yeah, listings are slow all over, but that's a pretty common thing. If this was a fix and flip and you're intending on just flipping it, that's usually the strategy. If this is something where you could rent it for a little bit, me personally, I would look to offer this property rent to own, where somebody can move in, give you a large non-refundable option deposit now, beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood. They're able to rent that for a series of time until they're able to buy it later on. You're selling it directly to the renter, no real estate commissions involved. Number two, you're helping somebody become a homeowner. If you've owned the home a little longer, it avoids short-term capital gains. You'll be in long-term capital gains, which is a different tax rate. So there's a lot of reasons why we love this. Plus, our tenant is responsible for all of the maintenance, the repairs, utilities. So you're not going to get the phone call and saying that the light bulb went out. You need to send over your guy to come replace my light bulb, or the time where in upstate New York, our renter.
But right now, there's a leaky, what is it? A leaky faucet, sink, something's leaking, and then I got gutters that are full. So
we have one rental.
One rental.
Because we bought it with a 0% mortgage.
Yeah. So her husband is also concerned if somebody would not pay or.
Yeah, so that's always a possibility. However, if somebody gives you 10 to 20 to 30, $40,000 to move in for a rent to own, they're a lot less likely not to pay you. That's my favorite. And then like we just completed one just now. We bought this property with creative finance 3 years ago. Seller had it as an Airbnb. We bought it with $100 down, turnkey house, $5,000 in closing costs. Didn't need a thing. We just put smoke alarms in it. We found a renter 4 or 5 months later who did rent to own. They gave us $25,000 to move in. Our payment we took over was only 1,700. We charged them 3,000 a month for rent, so we were cash flowing 1,200 a month. So very profitable. But now they finally just got the loan. They just got qualified. They got the loan. They just bought it 2 weeks ago. And then when we sold it to our renter, because there was no commissions, any of that kind of stuff, we got a check for almost $90,000.
Mhm.
So without any of the phone calls of, hey, the toilet's plugged or the leaky faucet. That's why our favorite is rent to own. And when they gave us 25,000 to move in, they're motivated to stay current on their payments because they know it's a non-refundable option deposit. And that if they don't pay you, they lose that money, and nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, and in this market, it just might be either you have to wait for a cash offer to come in, or whatever you're asking for there. But at the same time, I just love rent to own. So if you don't need the cash and you have a little time, I would definitely try to go for that.
So with a 160 price, I mean, for somebody gives me 10 to 15 grand to move in, I take that. I take that.
Yeah,
All
I
of
mean,
it.
you always want to ask them what's the most they have for their non-refundable option deposit, and you just want to market the heck out of it, and just see who's the best fit. You screen the tenant, and you're ready to rock.
Yeah, because we had one property, it was a price of 110. And I didn't say the dollar amount. I just said, what's the most you have for a new house? And she's like, I got 30 grand. I'm like, well, then let's set you up for a showing right away. Like, let's get you in there. And she actually looked at the first house we had and says, no, thank you. I don't like that house. Do you have anything else? I said, I just happen to have another house 5 minutes away. She went there and was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I wanted. I'm in love. How can I get you this money? I'm leaving town tomorrow. Guys, this lady met me at a Starbucks and gave me a check for like 32 grand. Never met me before. I felt weird about that. I thought she's
I
going to give me.
shocked. Yeah, you came home and told me that. I was like, what the
Yeah,
heck?
I came home like, huh, you'll never believe it. This
I think
lady
they're
just
just
gave
for
me.
great people. I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
So now we do everything with an attorney. So they go to the attorney's office. They sign the paperwork with an attorney for the rental part. And they give that $30,000 check to the attorney. Attorney signs them all up and then gives us that money.
Yeah, and I'm seeing so a couple comments you guys are asking. Yes, this is something that we do love teaching other people. So if that's something that interests you, go over to our website, creativefinanceplaybook.com, and hit the start now button, and let's hop on a quick call, see if we're a great fit for you. Because this is what we do. We have clients sitting in here right now. I don't know if they're with us the second, but they've just
Oh yeah, there's a couple of our clients in here right now. I see you guys.
well, I meant the ones that they literally just locked up an awesome a deal up in Pennsylvania, and now they are looking for their very first rent to own tenant buyers. And it can be overwhelming and intimidating if you're trying to piece together YouTube videos or podcasts. And so, yes, that's what we're here for. So if that's something you want to learn more, please reach out.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's what I needed help with. When we first started this, like I saw the idea of the picture through YouTube videos, but there were some pieces to the puzzle missing. So like when I couldn't just figure out some of the stuff, and thank goodness we did. If we didn't have our first coach back in 2016 and
Yeah,
17,
every single week we had a half hour and the thing hung up on us. Literally 30 minutes to the second.
yeah, when we got our very first coach, we had a half-hour phone call once a week. You had to call into something, so you didn't even have their phone number. And then like you had 30 minutes. Like you did not have 30 minutes and 5 seconds because at 30-minute mark, that thing just hung up on you mid-sentence or not. But it was great. He helped us put some of these pieces together. And our very first deal we did with Creative Finance was a house that we bought with $100 down.
Yeah, somebody's asking, can you explain that? How do we get $100 down? I think you need to explain that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I chatted with the seller. This is our first Creative Finance deal, y'all. So I'll just go back to 2017.
We've done a few with 100 down, but explain what that means.
Oh yeah, we did a bunch. So we would talk to a seller. Usually you need 3.5% down, 5% down, 20% down if you're applying for a mortgage. Our seller wanted 80 grand for his house. I said, that's what he wants. I said, okay, well, if I pay your 80 grand, are you open to seller financing? He said, I would be. I said, okay, well, I typically buy with no money down. Okay. He said, okay. And I said, well, I'd pay the closing costs on my side and I'd pay the closing costs on your side too. So I will pay that fee. I said, the payment, what's the least you would take? He says, well, I collect 1,000 for rent. He's like, if you could just give me $500 a month, that's fine, because I know you have to pay a tax insurance on top of that. I said, that's fair. That's going to go towards what I owe you, my balance every month, right? And he's like, yep. He just said yes to a 0% mortgage. That's going to go towards my balance of what I owe you every month. And so at this point, I bought the house for his price. He didn't care because I paid his price. I think on that deal, there was what, 3,000 in closing costs. It was an 80 grand house, but the $100 down, you got to pay closing costs, buyer side and seller side. So you will have that. That depends on where you live, what that looks like. But for us on that one deal, it was probably about $3,000. However, we have to leave a deposit with the seller to firm the deal up. So when I signed this first creative finance deal, guys, I met him at a really special place to do this. So he felt comfortable. I met him at McDonald's. Okay. Because he enjoyed their coffee, and they do have some delicious breakfast burritos, which I've been my jam lately. And I don't know why, but either way, I met him at McDonald's, pull out the paperwork. I had him sign it. He okayed the paperwork. And I said, okay, I brought this $100 bill. I'm like, here you go. You're going to need this for the deposit. He's like, no, I don't want that. But in my mind, unless he takes a deposit, we don't have a firm deal. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, no, you got to take this $100. He's like, no, I don't want it. And I'm like, you're married. You got a wife. Take her out somewhere nice, but you're taking this $100. And he was like, all right, I guess. I literally was like arguing with him nicely, but I'm fighting with this guy at McDonald's to take my $100. Okay.
Yeah. So when we say $100 down, that's always to the seller.
Yep. That's the down payment that seller got in that deal. So no 20% down or 10% down, $100 down. And all we did on that deal was come up with the closing costs on the buyer side and seller side, because you can't expect your seller, who just received only $100 from you, to come up with $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever it is to cover the closing costs to sell their house. So part of doing business with this is you have to pay both sides at closing.
Yeah, maybe you should have bought him a Big Mac.
You know what? I would have, if he wanted it, I would have got him a Big Mac. I would have done it within a heartbeat. I was so excited. I got my first deal. I came home. I got the biggest smile on my face. She's got the picture. I mean, like in our old kitchen. I'm like, oh, look at me.
But it was proof of concept, right? Because it was the first time where you, from front to back, that was our first deal that we did it, seller finance, and then we found the tenant buyer, and they cashed us out.
Yep. So worked like a charm, guys. And guess what? We put in a rent to own renter, gave us, I think, like 8 or 10 grand to move in.
And each time you're looking for a buyer, it does just depends on the market, the time of year, the area that you're posting in. And we're very particular. We really want to get the right buyer and the tenant buyer in the right property. So you always want to factor in a couple months payments, because if you're buying on seller finance, ideally you could get 90 days till first payment, unless they're in a bind and can't make those payments, in which case you'll have to start paying them right away. But ideally that you'll have a little buffer there, because you want some time to be able to market that property and find your correct buyer. Because if you could take the first person, they might not be the best fit, especially if you're, brand new at this. That was kind of our thing. Looking back, we picked a couple maybe a little too quickly. But now that we've done this for a while, our advice to you is definitely screen, and keep showing the heck out of that property.
Yeah, and a great question. Do we find the sale price range of $350 better for rent to own than $550 to $650? So as you just get to be more, I don't find it better or worse. The only thing I just remember is when I'm getting to more expensive homes, I might need a little bit more time to find the right renter who has an adequate non-refundable option deposit.
Yeah.
Because my buyer's pool is going to be a lot less than the $150,000 home. So it depends on what part of the country you're in, because I'm from upstate New York, where, I mean, you could get a decent house for 150 to 200,000. And then we live in Tampa now, where they get you like a parking spot, not even with, I mean, just like not even a driveway, like a spot for 200 grand. So depends on where you are. I love, believe it or not, for me, some of my favorite deals, although the big deals pay nice. So I will say that. My favorite are like these 12 to 1,500 square foot ranches that aren't these big, huge houses that are kind of close to turnkey. And, they just seem to work out really well. I like the median house price range or less typically. If I get into over that, I just got to remember it does take a little bit more time to find the right renter, but there's always people out there looking for a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. Just as a reminder, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's only about 17, 18, 19% of the US population that could qualify for a mortgage. So out of that 82%, let's just say, there's a lot of folks in there who maybe have a high income, have a whole bunch of money, but maybe they're self-employed, or maybe they had good credit at one point, something bad happened, and their credit took a big dip, so they don't qualify right now, but a divorce. You know, how many times you see good people who just had a divorce and all of a sudden their credit took a big hit, but they got a bunch of money and they would love to be able to move into their future home now and rent it while they're straightening that out for the next few years. So for me, I'm always looking to do a deal. The only time rent to own gets a little funky, out of all 50 states, the only one's a little funky is Texas. You can only rent to own. The option agreement could be only up to 6 months in Texas. However, what I've found that you can't write an option agreement longer than 6 months, but if the renters are still there, can you still sell it to them later on? Sure, you can. So, but that option agreement can't be longer than 6 months. The rental agreement could be as whatever. Yeah. See?
So yeah, if you have any rentals that you're looking to flip over, that's how we started. We had the 5 properties that we decided all at once. Let's do them all.
That was a crazy summer, guys. The summer of 17, where all of our rentals, once the leases came up, we offered it to our renters. They all passed because they didn't have that non-refundable option deposit.
Yep.
So we just went and found all new renters that whole summer, and they were all doing now rent to own. So we collected a bunch of money that summer, raised a lot of capital from those non-refundable option deposits on those 5 houses. One was 30 grand.
Do you prefer lease option versus contract for deed?
I do prefer lease option because if my renter stops paying, I just have to evict them versus a contract for deed where I have to foreclose on them. And that typically takes much longer. Also, flip side of that, we've had many renters come back and say, hey, Joe, you guys have been great. Hey, Jen, you guys are awesome. We love you. But my job just took me to Austin, Texas, and I'm moving. So you're going to get the house back at the end of the next month. I just say goodbye. I don't have to go through deeding the proper, paperwork or doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
they just say goodbye and they move out. So we've got one, he's moving out at the end of the year because his girlfriend wants to buy a house on the other side of town. I'm like, cool. I'll let you stay to the end of the year. And then congratulations when you guys get your new house. And we get that house back, and then we'll find somebody else who's got $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 down to move in. So he's sad. He feels like he let us down that he didn't buy the house. He's like, I'm so sorry. You guys are the best. You guys have been wonderful. This is all me. But this girl I've been dating, she wants to live on the other side of town. So I'm doing this for her.
What he really loved is he had some big dogs, and you can't really rent with big dogs sometimes. So he had a nice little yard for the dogs and all the things. So
yeah.
PropWire. I don't think we've used PropWire. We use PropStream. I don't.
Yeah, PropStream is what we use.
And then single story in Southern California. No, we do not.
I wish we did.
With lease options, we are paying for taxes, insurance, because we are the owners. Absolutely. We strongly encourage renters insurance, and really everybody should have that. We have, I don't know if we've been close finding the renter prior to closing. You totally could if you can align it. You got to have everything lined up really, really well. But again, we're really big on just finding the right buyer. So sometimes we'll just.
So the two things I like to do is when we find a property and we know we're closing in 30 days, we can market the property now. If I could show it right away, great. Sometimes we can't show it right away if the previous owner is in there still. So if we market the property a lot, we gather a lot of interest, but then for some reason, the people disappear because I can't show it to them right away. So if you're gonna close in 30 days, the property's vacant and you're allowed to show it, then show it and see if you can get your renter to move in and do their rent to own closing at the same time you do your closing. Life is beautiful. Okay. However, if you don't get access, we've done this, like coming soon, coming in 30 days, you get a lot of hype. And then 30 days later, you reach out to all the people and they're like, oh, bought
I
it.
already found another rental.
Yeah,
if
I
you
bought
do
a
it that way.
giraffe and I spent my
Yeah.
money, whatever. Crazy stuff people do.
Giraffe.
Whatever. They just spend money.
Yeah. And then Amanda, as far as Texas, Scott Horn is who you'll want to reach out to. He's really awesome when it
He's in
comes
the
to,
Dallas area. Yeah, if you
yeah,
Google Scott Horn in
if you
Dallas.
want to work with an attorney. We really encourage you do everything with your attorneys, no matter even if it's a title state in Florida here, we would still use an attorney to close a rent to own tenant buyer, just so all the paperwork's properly done.
Yeah, we send them to an attorney to do it. We're not even there. They have their lease agreement, they have their option agreement. They sign that with the attorney. The attorney calls up, said, okay, they came through, they signed. Where do you want to mail your stuff to? They just mail it right to us, the check, the agreements, and then we just file it.
But yeah, definitely. If you love hearing any of this and you want to chat a little bit more, please just head over to the website, creativefinanceplaybook.com, hit get started, and we'll hop on a call with you. We love it.
Yeah. And then obviously too, guys, we're hosting a meetup in Bradenton, December
19th. Yep.
So these are always free events. It's a live meetup where we meet. This one, there's going to be a charge, and that's going to be bringing a toy for some youngins that we're going to donate to some local charities. So if you are in the Florida area, Georgia area, or you just feel like flying on down, December is a beautiful time in Florida. I will tell you that you will be loving it down here. So you definitely want to join us for that. And then once again, every Tuesday at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, we're here live to just give back to you guys, show what we're currently doing, showing what works, bringing in some great guests too. I mean, we love to do this. So if we nailed all the questions, let's get back to work and have a wonderful week, guys.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday. Once again, if you got questions, drop them in the Creative Finance Playbook. We do live Q&A in there too. And then guys, once again, if you want to learn more about our small group coaching, send us a DM or reach out to the website. We'll get on a one-on-one and chat about that. And we'd love to see if we can help.
Yeah. So go talk to sellers.
Yes. Go talk to sellers, post that blue ad. And then if you want to end on a win, that blue ad that we talked about, one of our clients in our small group coaching, I'm just going to say her first name, but her name is Amy. Amy posted this blue ad into one Facebook group and had 1,100 responses and got 50 leads from it, which 10 of these are solid leads out of one Facebook post that didn't cost a darn thing. 1,100 comments. She is now on our Mount Rushmore for the biggest one ever. We've had several hundred comments, but we've never anybody clipped 1,100, not even close. So This is a cool win, guys. This stuff works. Go use it. Go do it. And nobody deserves success more than you. So have a wonderful week, and we'll see y'all next week. See you guys.